Welcome to Studying Law Around the World. I'm Claudio Klaus. In each episode, I talk with lawyers, law students, and professors from different parts of the world to talk about legal education, careers, and what the profession looks like in real life. We talk about the hard parts, the surprises, and the decisions that shaped their paths. Whether you're planning to study abroad, thinking about working in another legal system, or just curious about how law works around the world, this podcast is for you. Today, I have the opportunity to be interviewing Aneka Jiwaji. She is a litigator. She has an LLM in securities law and has an incredible experience. She leads her own firm, and I'm so excited to host her today. Thank you so much for being here today, Aneka.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And to start the podcast today, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our guests and maybe share a little bit about your journey into law and what inspired you to become a litigator.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Annika, and I'm a commercial litigator and a securities litigator here in Vancouver. And I've had quite the journey to get to where I am at today. So I kind of grew up in a law family. My dad was a lawyer. My dad had a number of siblings who were lawyers. So I grew up around this industry from a very young age. I was actually born the day before my dad's constitutional law exam at Dalhousie University. The whole family relocated to Halifax for my dad to attend law. So I was born into this at a very young age. I kind of grew up running around my dad's practice. My dad said I was always looking for jobs to do, so he would have to make up jobs for me, like filing. And I would say, oh, I want to stamp things and just little things like that. So yeah, I was always kind of around my dad's practice. I always, from a young age, said I wanted to be a lawyer. And I've always known that I was a litigator. I never even did like a solicitor's rotation. I went straight into a full litigation role, and I've only ever done litigation, and I've stayed in litigation all of the 10 years, and probably love it. So yeah, in terms of like the journey, like I started at a specialty lines, national specialty lines insurance firm doing mostly professional negligence claims. And then I transitioned to a full service regional firm with more of like a full service practice, still doing some of the insurance work I was doing before, but then some more commercial litigation. And then I went full commercial litigation at an international firm. And after that, I went to the BC Securities Commission. I was a litigation counsel there in the enforcement branch for about 3.5 years. And most recently, I was at a top tier commercial litigation boutique in town. And as of January 12th of this year, so very recently, I'm now at my own boutique shop with myself and my sister, who is a corporate lawyer with a specialty in tax and IP and M&A. So we are doing something a little different here, kind of bringing my skill set and hers together. And now we're just kind of starting on that journey now. So that's kind of the long story of how I'm going.
It's incredible. I'm glad we're talking now that, you have this awesome and exciting professional update. To continue on learning a little more about your journey and all of that, I also wanted to ask you about, outside the courtroom as you're a litigator. Are there a few, passions or projects that energize you and influence your perspective as a lawyer?
Oh my gosh, I have it's actually a little joke. I just had lunch with a friend of mine, and she said to me, she's a litigator in town who's 10 years my senior, and she was just sort of chuckling at me because I'm kind of one of those people who always has a project or a passion outside of law, sort of on the go. I've always sort of considered myself to be a bit like multifaceted, a little bit out of the box of what you usually see in a kind of the complex litigation space. Other things going on in my life. I think it's really important. So one of the big things that I'm working on right now is the jewelry company with my sisters. So with the sister who I have the law firm with, and another younger sister, I'm the middle sister. There's three of us who lives in Toronto, and she works in advertising. So we have a jewelry company called Jaya. We're at House of Jaya on Instagram, and we do a lot of like fine jewelry. We're doing a bit of like a bigger launch for some collections we have in the works coming up in the spring. But to date, we've done a lot of custom engagement rings and cocktail rings, and I made a lot of rings for a lot of other lawyers in town. Friends from law school. I've done their engagement rings. So that project's on the go. And then, of course, my LinkedIn is sort of an ongoing project, which kind of came out of nowhere. I started doing LinkedIn in 2020, and it really just took off. So I do a lot of writing around mental health and gender equity issues and systemic issues in the law on LinkedIn. And so that's an ongoing sort of passion project. And those are the things, in addition to building out Jiwaji Law, that I have on the go right
Oh, that's so exciting and lots going on. If I may ask a little more about what has motivated you to start your own firm, and even if that comes from you wanting to reflect your values and your approach to law in a more personal way.
Yeah, the own firm thing is something that I really sort of came around to. So from probably the time that I was like a 5 or 6 year call, I'm now a 10-year call, people would say to me like, Annika, you should start your own firm. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that because I sort of had this idea in my mind that I had to like make it within the existing infrastructure. So I kept trying to like fit myself into the boxes of what I thought I should be doing. So, for example, I would say, okay, well, I'll go start my own firm if and when I make partner at another firm. Like just things like that. Like I had all of these little benchmarks of things that I was going to do and accomplish before I started my own firm. I always wanted my own firm. I always kind of knew that was end game for me. But I think that in some ways I sort of got into this proving myself mentality. I wanted everybody to know like I could get in within the system. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I think on the good thing side, I built a lot of really good credibility in this market, which I don't think I would have done if I had gone out earlier by myself. But really, for me, it sort of came to a head. Like, I really just did not see a future at the current firm that I was. I don't think that they saw a future for me either. I think that's probably a mutual statement. And, I really just got to a point where I had a good book of business. I was doing really well when it came to the actual, substantive skills of litigating. I really felt confident in, what I was able to do and bring to the table. And there was really no value of being at other firms anymore. I didn't feel like I needed another platform for, credibility or for experience. I have so many amazing mentors outside of my firm and even my former firm that, like, I would always call if I had, to snowball a file or a problem or something. Like I felt I had the network that I needed, that if I was like stuck on a file or I needed some guidance, I didn't need to be within the existing structure anymore to make that work for me. So I was kind of at a point when I was looking to what was my next opportunity. I did actually interview and had some really good opportunities kind of come my way, but they were all again within other people's firms or, big law and that kind of thing. And I just kind of brought to a point where I said, I don't actually need these things anymore, all of the things that it takes to do this myself. And that's really what spurred me to go and join up with my sister and do this. And we just both really felt like, that we didn't see something in the market the way that we kind of practice law. Like we have all the, the skills and the experience, but I think that we felt that the firms that we had been at in the past, like we just were not able to flourish in the way that we could at our own firm. And my sister, who went out 6 months ago by herself in June, was just having such a good time practicing outside of all of these other institutions. And she's getting such great clients and great experience. And she just kept saying to me, like, this is like the way forward. I really wanted to build a firm that, for me, it's not about being women led for the sake of being women led. It's more that like hiring women and hiring heavy hitting women is actually really good business. And I see a lot of firms that sort of say, oh, we're women led. That's like an amazing, like, for me, that's not really necessarily the story. It's like building a place where we hire women and excellent people because they're the best person for the job. That's the decision. It's the business decision. We don't do it because it's warm and fuzzy. We do it because it's a good business decision. We are hiring the best candidate, the most excellent candidate, and that in a lot of times tends to be a woman. So that's part of what this firm is invoked, and I'm really to be able to say that.
Well, that's a very exciting phase for sure. And I'm so happy to hear a little bit about like why this decision came about and how you got to it. And you mentioned a little bit about your practice. I'd love to
Yeah.
hear a little more, about your commercial cases, securities, insurance. I know it's very hard to say like my day to day looks like this because it can be so varied. But I'm wondering if there's a few things that you find most, rewarding about this kind of work, or if there's a few things that are very challenging and maybe that's what excites you as well.
Yeah. So my practice, I really consider myself to be like a true barrister. Like I am always taking the mentality. I've done so many different things in litigation. I've always taken the mentality that you should never get comfortable if a file is new to you or an area of practice is new to you. You can always learn it as long as you have like the litigation toolbox. Like the litigation's all really the same in a lot of ways, right? It's like if you have the procedural tools and ability to do strategy, you should be able to pick up most files and do them. Now, that being said, I don't. I'm pretty squarely in the like bread and butter commercial litigation space in the sense of like I don't do any estates litigation. I don't do any criminal law or family law or employment law. So I basically my commercial litigation practice encompasses everything else. So like shareholders disputes, commercial contract disputes, advised companies and for profits and societies, governance issues, all of that sort of thing. And then I have sort of an interesting sort of subset of my practice, which really comes out from my time at the Securities Commission. So I do have a securities like regulatory practice where, I'm defending people against investigations and prosecutions from entities like the BC Securities Commission, or if they've got professional disciplinary hearings at things like CIRO, the Canadian, I always forget what the acronym stands for these days, but Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization, I think it is. That kind of thing. And then that sort of snowballed because I had that, skill set within the administrative law sort of regulatory world into doing other regulatory areas. So, like for example, I've taken on a file right now that is a matter before the Medical Services Commission. So that's kind of very squarely in like the administrative law sort of space. So yeah, I would sort of describe my practice as like commercial litigation, regulatory securities litigation, administrative law. One of the things that I'm doing now that is new to me in a sense of I've done IP litigation before. I did do some IP litigation when I was at Denton's, but my sister is an intellectual property and trademark lawyer, and she's also a tax lawyer. So she really has like really great substantive knowledge in those areas, but she's not a litigator. So one of the reasons that we sort of decided to bring this together is we felt that there was a niche in the market for these two specific areas because a lot of firms like they'll do IP and they'll do tax, but they don't have anybody who does the disputes work. And I have like the litigation and the chops to do that stuff, but I don't have a substantive knowledge, and my sister knows that stuff in some. So we have actually been picking up some more. We've got two really nice pieces of IP litigation on the go right now, which is great. And we're starting to get more referrals in the tax disputes space. So I really just see my practice sort of staying in a lot of ways what it is, but also both of those things, IP and tax, like they're basically before administrative tribunals or in tax court. So I'm sort of well positioned to do that work, and I'm excited to work with someone who just like has so much respect for me, so much respect for her. We collaborate really well on these files, and I think that we'll be able to serve clients in a way that other groups just on those areas. So yeah, that's how I where my practice is at right now, how I see it developing.
That's so exciting. No, it sounds really incredible. The skill set that each of you bring. Something that I'm always curious. So I'm not sure if you've seen this, but basically what I do in my podcast, a lot of my listeners at this moment are early career professionals, people who are starting up their careers, law students. So I always make a point to ask my guests a little bit about things that they've seen throughout their careers or things that really helped them in their career as well. If I were to ask you, looking back, what are some of the most important lessons that you've learned as a litigator that maybe you think that, young lawyers should know early in their careers? Are there a few points that you would maybe tell your younger self these days?
I don't know if my sort of take on that is necessarily litigation focused, but what I will say is like first off, don't try to plan things too much. Like when I look at my career, like I couldn't have planned any of this, right? Like none of this was really planned. I was always sort of nimble. I was always able to pivot. I always trusted my own judgment and my own intentions on things. And I think, like, a lot of times in law, we get really caught up in what like other people are telling us what to do. Like, so for example, like, people told me not to do LinkedIn. They said like that was going to be a career suicide mission. People told me I would never be able to, transition out of doing insurance litigation. People told me a lot of things. And, for me, I just didn't listen to any of them. I'm not saying that you should never take advice from anybody, but like, I think you have to like really dig deep and see like what you want out of your career. And people are giving advice about from like their lived experience. And some of that is like great advice. But on the whole, like I think you really have to like be really self-aware. And that's what's really served me in my career. Like I think a very self-aware person. Like I know what I'm good, know what I'm good at, very well aware of my strengths and my weaknesses, and that's really served me well in terms of being able to like make decisions on my own accord without having to like, run my choices by everybody and second guess myself and doubt myself and all of that. So, I think the industry is changing a lot. Like I remember when I was a law student, like I would have never imagined doing some of the things that I'm doing right now. Like if you had told me that I was be writing, content to 8,000 people on LinkedIn, I would have said that, you're crazy. So it's like kind of, I don't know, and it's a long-winded way of saying like trust your own judgment and like you're well equipped to make decisions for yourself. You don't need to listen to everybody's advice on everything. That was the first thing I would say. And the second thing I would say is, for me anyways, like the connections that I have made in the law have like saved me on so many occasions. And when I say that, I mean like it's so easy to get caught up in like your own firm and who you work with at your own firm and like, what that looks like in your relationships with them. I'm like, that's a great thing. But having a network outside of the firm that you work at is so important. Like I've been really intentional about really meeting like-minded people in the law, like not from a business development perspective, but from a support network perspective. Like I've identified people that I know share my values, made real organic like friendships and relationships with these people, and we have each other's backs. And for me, that has been hugely, hugely, hugely helpful. So, it's really easy to get caught up in billing time and billable hours and all of that. And like, that's all great. But like the connections, the relationship piece of this business is really, it's so valuable. So really like invest time and energy into that. Like I'm still very good friends with a lot of people that I went to law school with. And we foster those relationships. Like we're 10 years out. We still do trips together every year. We still go skiing together every year. We're at each other's kids' birthday parties. Like those are the same people now that are sending me work. And I didn't stay in touch with them because I wanted work from them. It's like these are real relationships. And I think that that's made my career just so much more fulfilling.
I, I love to hear that. It's been so good to have this common topic like across most of my interviews that relationships really are a big thing of life, really. So I'm so glad that, lawyers are always talking about it. And it's been interesting because I don't know if we speak so much more of these days because for some time maybe this was forgotten, or hopefully that was not the case. Hopefully it's just everybody really recognizes the importance of having relationships, having a life out of work in a way. So it's
Yeah, I mean, and I also
glad to
just think, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I'm just thinking out loud here. Like, I like, what is success if you can't share it with people? Like, I mean, like, I just had lunch with a friend of mine, and we should, or another like, really good lawyer in town, and we were just kind of laughing about something, and chuckling, and like, just like you have to see the lighter part of this business, right? If you just like get into like the slogging and the grinding, and you don't make any relationships, you don't make any friendships, like that is no way to live. Like that's just my take on it. So I just never been one of those people who like goes to work, does my work with my head down and goes home. Like I'm making like real relationships when I'm there, whether that's, at the firm that I'm at. Like I've got friends at every firm that I've worked at. Like I was just at a friend's wedding who I worked out with at Denton's, which is like, 2 firms ago, but like we're still very good friends. I still see people from the first firm that I worked at where I summered and articled and I was on there for a couple of years. Like I still invest in those relationships because like that's what makes that's like the beautiful human element of this job, right? So Yeah, I just really think it's so valuable, and it's just really easy to say, oh, I'm really tired. I don't want to slot in that lunch with so and so. That's, another hour away from the office. I could do another hour of billable time and like get home sooner. But like there's no fun in my opinion anyway.
Well, amazing. Loved hearing that. If I were to ask you maybe to wrap up today's episode, how have you felt that LinkedIn has played a role in all of that? Personally, I felt that it really has helped me to keep in touch with people when I want to share a work update, but maybe it's not something that I want to do in a one-on-one setting or some topic that I'm interested and passionate about. And then I usually hear good feedback about it. So I'm very, very curious to hear how does that come around to you?
LinkedIn is amazing. It's like honestly, like people would make fun of me for doing LinkedIn. And it's funny because before my LinkedIn presence like really took off, like when I was really small, people would be like, she's like a LinkedIn influencer now. People are pretty judgy about it. And it's funny because it's those same people now who are like, wow, you have such an amazing referral network. And I'm like, that's all LinkedIn, right? Like, I've never ever gotten a file from LinkedIn. Like, nobody's ever like cold LinkedIn messaged me, hey, I need your legal services. You know what I mean? But like, I made so many amazing connections with other lawyers on LinkedIn. And like, that has been amazing for my career and my practice. It's an amazing. The other thing that LinkedIn has given me is agency. Like I have control over my own connections, my own marketing. Like I'm able to put out, interesting cases that I've read, interesting cases that I've worked on. Like if my own firm wouldn't market me in the way that I want it to be marketed, I would do it, right? So it gave me agency and control over my career. Like I could share my wins. I could share my opinions. I get to have my own narrative of my own career. And that is something that is so rare, especially for women, especially for racialized women, especially for young lawyers. It is really, really rare to have this much agency over your own. I get to share my own story from my own lens, my own perspective of the way I see things. Nobody gets to control me. And that agency is really invaluable. Like I get to shape my own career. And I've done a lot of that through my LinkedIn presence, which I think is pretty cool. So, I'm really happy I didn't listen to the people who told me to shut my LinkedIn down. And I really think that a lot of people who said that, some of them were genuinely looking out for me. But some of them just didn't like that I was doing something different and it was sort of threatening to their idea of what the status quo should look like. And they wanted a world in which, we all wait in the wings for them to allow us to like have a leadership position or, really have an opinion or build our own practice. And I just said no to all of that and I just did it myself. So I think LinkedIn is the single best thing I've ever done. Genuinely. That's I say that wholeheartedly. Outside of like, doing a good job. Because like you get if I mean, if you get good work and then you don't know how to do it, you're kind of screwed. And so I always focused on like being as good of a lawyer as I could possibly be, putting in the hours, doing all of that. But in terms of like building connections and doing that in a way that like made sense for me, and it's sort of interesting talking about it because none of it was really planned. Like I never had like a plan with LinkedIn. It just turned into something more than I could have ever anticipated. But yeah, it's definitely been one of the single best things I've done for my career.
I love hearing that. Thank you so much for sharing it. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time to join in the podcast today. I really appreciate learning more about your career and your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. It was been so much fun chatting with you, and I'm excited that so many more young people are doing fun things like this, and I think it's great. And I say keep on doing it.
Really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in and listening to today's episode.